Alex had never expected a routine mission to become the most important moment of his life. The crew of the starship Aurora had been sent to chart unexplored sectors near the Vera system, far from the safety of Earth. The planet they were approaching looked like nothing he had ever seen. Pale blue seas shimmered beneath vast green continents, and the skies glowed faintly with auroras that stretched across the horizon. He felt a thrill in his chest. Exploration had always called to him, but this was something else. Their ship landed on the largest continent, its surface dotted with strange flora that seemed to pulse with life. Alex was the first to step onto the soil. The ground was soft, almost sponge-like, and emitted a faint warmth. He looked around, careful but curious. Every breath of the alien air carried a scent he could not name, sweet yet sharp, like citrus mixed with metal. The mission was simple: collect samples, record atmospheric data, and return. But as Alex moved deeper into the alien forest, a soft, distant sound stopped him. It was a cry, low and trembling, almost like the whimper of a frightened animal. He froze. Most likely it was a native creature. He had learned not to assume anything. His instincts told him it was something, or someone, that needed help. He followed the sound carefully, stepping over glowing roots and around enormous ferns with translucent leaves. The cry grew louder, then suddenly stopped. Ahead he saw a figure slumped near a pool of water that reflected the strange colors of the sky. At first he thought it was an alien animal, but as he drew closer he realized it was humanoid. She was lying on her side, her body frail but strangely elegant, with skin that shimmered like liquid silver in the sunlight. Her hair was long and iridescent, changing color slightly with every movement. Her eyes were closed, but faint tears streaked her cheeks. Alex approached cautiously, kneeling beside her. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. She did not respond. Her breathing was shallow, almost imperceptible. He checked her pulse with gentle hands, relieved to find it strong, though irregular. Something had clearly hurt her. "Don't worry, I'll help you," Alex whispered, not knowing if she understood him. He scanned the area for dangers, then carefully lifted her onto a makeshift stretcher he constructed from nearby branches and vines. Every movement he made was careful, respectful. She was unlike any being he had met, fragile yet extraordinary. Back at the ship, the medical team was shocked to see the alien. None of them had ever encountered a species like hers. Alex stayed close as they examined her. She did not speak, and the translation devices failed to connect with her language. Every attempt to communicate was met with silence or confused looks. Over the next days, Alex took it upon himself to care for her. He gave her water, soft food the ship's systems could synthesize, and gentle attention. Slowly, she began to respond, first by mimicking his gestures, then by simple signs. She pointed at herself when asked her name, and eventually formed the name Lyria with the aid of a vocalizer the ship engineers improvised. Alex and Lyria spent hours together, exploring the ship's small garden, sitting by the observation windows, and sharing stories through gestures and drawings. He showed her pictures of Earth, the sun rising over mountains, oceans, deserts, and cities bustling with people. Lyria's eyes widened with wonder at every image, her tears now sometimes of joy. One evening, as they sat beneath the artificial stars of the observation dome, Alex noticed Lyria staring at him more intensely than usual. He felt a connection he had never felt before, not just curiosity, but a deep human desire to protect and care for her. He reached out, taking her hand gently in his own. Her fingers were long and delicate, yet surprisingly strong. I want you to be safe," he said. "No matter what happens, I'll protect you." Lyria looked at him, eyes wide, shimmering with tears. She nodded slightly but said nothing. Days turned into a week and their bond grew. Alex taught her simple words in English. She tried to repeat them, laughing softly when she failed. He learned some sounds from her language, enough to know that her species had words for trust, hope, and fear, but none that directly translated to love. He wondered if it existed in her culture at all. One day, as the ship passed over a sparkling lake on the planet's surface, Alex and Lyria sat together on the observation deck. The sunset painted the alien sky with shades of violet and gold. The world outside looked like a painting, but Alex's focus was entirely on her. He had rehearsed what he was about to say countless times in his head. Simple, honest words, words that carried the weight of his growing feelings. "Lyria," he whispered, his voice trembling slightly. She turned to look at him, her silver eyes reflecting the fading light. "Oh, I love you." Time seemed to stop. Lyria froze, her hand still in his. Her eyes filled with tears more than he had ever seen before. She could not speak. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. Alex's heart sank. He had expected confusion, maybe even rejection, but not this. "Lyria, are you okay?" he asked gently, fear creeping into his voice. She shook her head slightly, tears streaming down her face. Her hands pressed against his chest as if trying to convey something deeper than words. For hours she sat silently, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. Alex did not move. He simply held her hand, letting her cry, unsure of what he had done wrong. He did not understand why a simple declaration of love would cause so much pain. Over the next few days he observed her carefully. Lyria avoided certain areas of the ship, seemed restless, and often stared at the horizon, lost in thought. Alex began to realize that her tears were not from sadness alone. They were a mixture of emotions, complex and deep, tied to her past, her culture, and perhaps even her fear of expressing feelings. He discovered that her species, the Vairalians, valued emotional restraint above all else. To openly express love was considered a profound act, one that could carry consequences she was not ready to face. The words he had spoken had broken through barriers she had spent her entire life building. They were both terrified and relieved by the connection he had offered so freely. Alex decided to give her time. He did not push her to speak or explain herself. Instead, he continued their small routines, sharing meals, exploring the ship, and observing the planet from afar. Slowly, he saw signs of Lyria opening up. She began to smile more, laugh softly, and mimic his gestures with playful curiosity. She even started to rest her head on his shoulder when they sat together, a gesture of trust he had learned to recognize from his observations. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over the alien landscape, Lyria finally reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were cool against his skin, and her eyes, filled with tears, met his. No words were spoken, but Alex understood. Her tears were not rejection. They were relief, gratitude, and a deep emotional release. She had never allowed herself to feel or express love openly, and his words had offered her permission to do so. Alex smiled softly, holding her hand in both of his. He knew that their journey had just begun. There were challenges ahead, her past, her culture, and the unknown dangers of the planet. But he felt certain of one thing. The human heart had a power unlike any other. Compassion, courage, and love could reach across the stars, across species, and touch even the most guarded soul. That night, as the ship drifted silently above the alien world, Alex held Lyria close. He did not speak. He did not need to. Her tears had spoken volumes, and for the first time he realized that love was not always about words. It was about understanding, trust, and the willingness to stand by someone, no matter how alien they might be. The stars outside shone brightly, indifferent yet beautiful, and Alex felt a quiet pride. Humanity had ventured into the unknown, faced the dangers of the cosmos, and yet it was the simplest human act, a declaration of love, that had bridged a chasm between worlds. He did not yet know what challenges tomorrow would bring, but he was ready, because for the first time in his life he knew that love could survive anything, even in the cold depths of space. And somewhere deep inside, Alex felt certain that Lyria knew it too. The days passed slowly on the Aurora, but for Alex every moment spent with Lyria was filled with discovery. She had begun to trust him, though the weight of her emotions still lingered like a shadow. He noticed the little things, the way her hands trembled when she was nervous, how she avoided certain areas of the ship, or how she stared at the stars with an intensity that seemed almost painful. Alex wanted to understand her fully, but he also knew that some things could not be rushed. One evening, while Lyria sat at the observation deck, watching the twin moons rise, Alex decided to ask gently, "Lyria, I want to understand, why did my words make you cry?" She looked at him, eyes shimmering in the dim light. For a moment she did not respond. Then slowly she raised a hand, pointing toward her chest and then toward the horizon. Alex realized she was trying to show him something about her past, something she could not say in words. He nodded, letting her lead. The next morning, Alex followed Lyria to a secluded part of the ship, a section that had been unused for years. There she touched a panel that opened to a small room filled with holographic images. At first Alex was confused, but as the lights shifted, he saw scenes of her home planet. Cities built on crystal towers, vast forests glowing under a purple sky, and beings moving with grace and purpose. Among them he saw her family, her friends, and a younger version of Lyria, laughing freely under the alien sun. Her hands shook as she traced the images, tears rolling down her cheeks again. Alex realized that Lyria had been separated from all of this. Her family, her home, her life. Her species had strict rules about emotional restraint, and expressing love openly was considered dangerous. To say the words, "I love you," to someone outside her society could be a threat to her safety, or even her honor. Alex reached out, placing his hand over hers. "I'm here now," he said softly. "You're safe. You don't have to hide anything from me." For the first time, Lyria spoke a single word, hesitant but clear. "Alone." Her voice was musical yet filled with sorrow. Alex understood instantly. She had lived much of her life alone, unable to share her true feelings. His simple words, "I love you," had broken through a lifetime of isolation. Over the next few days, Alex helped Lyria work through her emotions. They spent hours in the ship's garden, surrounded by alien plants and gentle light. He taught her small games humans played to express joy, like tossing stones into water and watching the ripples. She laughed softly when she missed, and he smiled at the sound, realizing it was the most beautiful music he had ever heard. One night, while observing the planet below, Alex noticed Lyria staring at the horizon with a distant look. "What do you see?" he asked. She hesitated, then pointed toward the planet's surface where faint shapes moved through the forests. Alex squinted and saw a small group of Vairalians, her people, approaching. Panic rose in him. "Lyria, are you afraid?" She shook her head. Her hands clasped his. "Not alone," she whispered, meaning she trusted him to face whatever came next. When the Vairalians reached the ship, they were cautious, suspicious, and visibly tense. Alex stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. Lyria stood beside him, her presence commanding despite her earlier fragility. The aliens spoke in a language Alex could not understand, but their tone was urgent, almost pleading. Lyria finally spoke, her voice trembling but firm. She explained, slowly, carefully, with the help of the translation devices, that she had been rescued from a dangerous part of their planet. Her people had assumed she was lost forever, and the emotional restraint that governed her society meant that seeing someone confess love could be alarming. She had cried because Alex's words were not only beautiful, they were unprecedented. No one had ever shown her such trust and honesty. The Vairalians looked at Alex with a mixture of awe and confusion. Here was a human, a being from another world who had shown courage, compassion, and emotional intelligence beyond their expectations. They did not fully understand his actions, but they sensed their importance. Over the next hours, Alex and Lyria worked together to explain the human perspective. Lyria's people watched as he treated her with respect, care, and gentleness. He did not push her to speak, did not force her emotions, and never sought personal gain. Slowly, they began to understand. Love, in its truest form, transcended rules, laws, and even species. After the first day of tense introductions, Lyria led Alex and the Vairalians to a crystal grove, a sacred place where her people connected with their ancestors. She knelt and touched the glowing crystals, showing Alex the rituals of her species. Each movement was deliberate, filled with meaning. Alex observed carefully, mimicking her gestures where appropriate, learning not only about her culture but about the strength and depth of emotion her people carried beneath their disciplined exterior. That night, as the twin moons rose again, Alex and Lyria sat together in silence. She finally spoke more words in English, hesitant but clear. "Your words, safe, heart safe. Cry happy and scared." Alex smiled gently, squeezing her hand. "I only ever wanted to show you that love can be safe," he said. "You don't have to hide from it." Lyria leaned into him, her tears soft now, not of fear but of relief. She had spent so long in isolation, in fear of expressing her feelings, and he had given her permission to feel without judgment. For the first time in her life, she experienced the freedom of genuine connection. Days passed, and Alex noticed more changes in her. She began teaching him her language, sharing words that carried emotions humans rarely spoke aloud. She laughed more freely and her confidence grew. She even helped him navigate the alien terrain outside the ship, guiding him safely through glowing forests and over crystalline hills. Alex learned that humanity had a unique strength, not in weapons, not in technology, but in empathy and courage. The ability to care for another being, regardless of origin, was powerful. Lyria had seen this firsthand, and her trust in him deepened with every passing day. One afternoon, as they explored a shimmering cave filled with bioluminescent crystals, Lyria stopped suddenly. She turned to Alex, her eyes wide. "I want to show you something," she said, her voice steady for the first time. She led him to a hidden chamber, where an ancient artifact rested. It was a small crystal orb glowing softly. Lyria touched it and visions filled Alex's mind. Memories of her childhood, moments of fear, moments of joy, and finally, moments of loss. Alex understood now fully why she had cried when he said he loved her. She had experienced fear, loneliness, and isolation beyond what most humans could imagine. His simple words had pierced through years of restraint, offering comfort, connection, and hope. He reached for her hand again.
"Lyria, you don't have to be afraid of love anymore," he whispered.
"I'll be with you, always." Her lips trembled into a smile. Tears ran down her face again, but this time they were tears of freedom. She leaned closer, resting her head on his shoulder, letting herself be vulnerable for the first time in her life. Alex held her, feeling a warmth that went beyond the physical. It was trust, it was connection. It was the human heart reaching across the stars. In the days that followed, Alex and Lyria worked to strengthen their bond. He taught her about humanity, our hopes, our fears, our capacity for kindness. She taught him about the Vairalians, their history, their culture, and the beauty of a society that valued discipline and honor. Together, they discovered that differences could bring them closer rather than divide them. The crew of the Aurora watched in awe as the bond between human and alien deepened. They saw Alex's courage not in battle or exploration, but in vulnerability. They saw Lyria's growth, her trust, and her courage to embrace emotions she had been taught to hide. And finally, one evening, as the alien sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with fiery hues, Lyria looked at Alex with a calm certainty. "I understand now," she said softly. "Your love, it is real. It is safe. It is mine to hold." Alex smiled, feeling a joy he had never known. He realized that humanity's greatest power was not technology or strength, but the ability to connect, to understand, and to love. In a universe filled with unknown dangers, this was the force that could bridge worlds, heal hearts, and bring hope to even the most guarded souls. As the stars shimmered above, Alex held Lyria close, understanding fully why she had cried. It was not sadness, but the overwhelming relief of finally being seen, understood, and loved. And for both of them, the future was bright, not just with the possibilities of exploration, but with the unspoken promise of a bond that could survive anything, across any distance and across the vastness of the stars. For the first time, both human and alien understood love, when given freely, could heal, unite, and change the course of lives. And in that knowledge, they found a home in each other, a bridge between worlds, and a hope that no distance or difference could ever break.